Please welcome our panelists, Chief Executive Officer of Africa 50, Alain Ebobissé, and our moderator, Managing Editor of Africa of Bloomberg News, Arijit Ghosh.
So Ebobissé, you've been with IFC for 18 years. Now you're running Africa 50. What's the difference between the two?
All right, thank you. Let me just first thank the organizer for inviting me. We're very pleased to be here. I also want to acknowledge my partners from the government of Morocco here who are hosting Africa 50. Well, what is different between my stint at IFC and Africa 50? First of all, it's because at Africa 50 we have the ability really to operate in a way which is a bit more flexible, and also in a way that allows us to, I would argue, to speed up the implementation of a project to some extent. At the same time, we have our balance sheet is much smaller, so we still need the IFCs and the African Development Bank and the World Bank of the world. But we believe at Africa 50 that we can show the way in terms of speed and execution.
So on that point of showing the way, we had a column out today by our Bloomberg Opinion columnist, Lara Williams, who wrote a piece saying that, Africa can become a climate savior instead of being typecast as a victim all the time. So what are the ingredients required for us to kind of do that in Africa?
Well, look, first of all, let me just say that, and this is something that most people know, Africa's contribution to climate change is quite low. And yet the continent is admittedly suffering the most in terms of global warming and climate change. Now, the good news for us is that our leaders and also the businesses in Africa and the population, we are fully aware of this, and we are fully committed to doing our part towards meeting our climate goals. But what we're also saying is that we want to make sure that the transition to net zero is a just and equitable transition. Now, we have lots of resources. If you take the power sector, for example, the energy sector, and I was quite pleased by the conversation we heard earlier by Fortescue on hydrogen, green hydrogen. We have quite a bit of resources, renewable resources, and we need to make sure that we're able to tap those renewable resources to produce renewable power. And we are already doing that to some extent. We need to talk about the successes that we have. If you take Morocco, for example, the Ouarzazate new solar program, but also wind. Quite, a number of power plants here are renewables in Morocco. If you look at Egypt, for example, with the Bemban 1.5 gigawatt solar plant in Bemban, which Africa 50, my company, invested in 400 megawatt there. So quite a bit is done, but we need to do a lot more and faster. And that's our challenge. But the good news is that we know how to do these things, and we have to figure out a way to do them faster and then at a bigger scale.
So do you have any country that you can emulate and bring technology or bring the right processes into Africa?
Well, look, I think one of the things that will make a big difference, and I could pick it up from the conversation we had earlier, it's about implementation speed. And we need to look at how other countries, other regions have done it. And, at Africa 50, we work quite a bit with friends from India. We have a partnerships with Power Grid of India, for example, to develop transmission line PPP in Africa. And, in India, but also in some of the other emerging regions, they have been able to speed up implementation. In the space of infrastructure, green infrastructure, where we operate at Africa 50, It is not rocket science, those projects. Those projects, we know how to do them. And I think with a few elements, some of them difficult, like mindset change, we can do things a bit faster. At Africa 50, the company that I lead, we've been able to invest in over 22 projects in 5 years in Africa, infrastructure project Africa, in 16 countries, while building the organization, just to demonstrate that the speed of execution is possible without compromising on the quality. Our mantra at Africa 50 is, if it's good enough, do it. Don't wait for perfection. Because sometimes people spend way too much time to get a perfect project, and they forget about the opportunity cost of delayed project implementation. If it's good enough, you do it, you can correct course, and with that kind of mindset, I believe we will see a substantial pickup in the investment in infrastructure, green infrastructure in Africa.
You talked about Power Grid Corp of India, and I'm glad to hear that they are doing things speedily. It's a state-run company. Can you tell us more? How much investments are you seeing because of that?
Well, I just mentioned the example with Power Grid for India because we're looking at transmission PPP in Africa. In fact, we will be the first entity to develop massive transmission public-private partnership on the continent. We'll do it in Kenya. Many other countries are approaching us. Hopefully in Morocco, we're also going to look at that. My friends, Minister Jazuli is here, Minister Benali is also here. We're having those discussions. So transmission PPP is one of the areas. But the speed that we want to see has to start at the early stage of the project development, the project preparation of the project. See, you mentioned earlier a statistic from McKinsey that a lot of projects fail at the project development phase. What we don't have enough on this continent is enough project preparation and project development resources. We need to build up the pipeline of bankable projects that could receive funds from investors which are seeking a good asset, good project which have been developed, but those investors are reluctant to come in the early stages. This is one of the reasons why Africa 50, together with the African Development Bank and the African Union Commission, we have launched the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa that will seek to raise $500 million of project preparation and project development to generate $10 billion worth of green infrastructure assets. These are the kind of initiatives that our continent needs, while we continue to argue forcefully for the $100 billion that developed countries actually have promised to developing countries for climate financing. We will continue to forcefully argue for that. We also need to take our own initiative on this continent to do what we have to do to get to the net zero.
You talked about some successes, which is fantastic, but you talked about the Green Infrastructure Alliance as well, which was formed in COP27, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Where are we now? What are the challenges you are facing to kind of raise this 500 million right now?
Yeah, no, look, I think, and this is really something that we need to crack. It's easier when you have a bankable project to raise money from investors. In fact, sometimes they fight to get a piece of the deal. There are very few investors, very few developers willing to come in the early stage to take the risk to develop the project. So it's not easy to raise $500 million for project preparation and project development. At Africa 50, we have about $100 million today for project development and project preparation. We need to multiply it by 5. So we are working on it. Stay tuned at COP28. We will make an announcement. In fact, next week in Paris at the summit that President Macron is organizing, we will talk about an important milestone for the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa. And then at COP28, we hope to achieve a first close for this fund. But here's also the other thing that we should say. There is quite a bit of money in Africa managed by African insurance investors. The African Development Bank estimates that about $2 trillion of assets under management by African insurance investors. We need to figure out a way to tap some of those funds. We need to have a dual approach, seek partners, global partners to support us, but also do it with our own resources, local resources, regional resources. This is one of the reasons why Africa 50 has launched the Africa 50 Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, which we plan to announce, we plan to announce soon. Stay tuned also for that.
Can you give us a sneak peek of this and the other one? It'll be fantastic to hear. A little more.
I think you'll be the first one to know when we are ready to announce. But in the event, it will be a $500 million fund that will seek to raise most of the money from African investors. We need to demonstrate that Africa is in the driving seat, working with partners, but it is us. We need to take over the matters because, you know, I spent sometimes 18 years at the World Bank Group, of course, and we would, you know, advise and recommend things to African countries, which is fine. It has to be done. But more and more, we have to see, and we see that Africans defining what they want to do and seek partners. Those that are not willing to work with us, that's fine. We will still proceed. But for that, we need to mobilize our own resources.
We're running out of time. In 20 seconds, what keeps you awake at night?
We want to do a lot more, a lot faster. The sense of urgency. There are about 15 to 20 million Africans, young Africans, getting into the workforce every year. We need to figure out a way to give them good jobs. And power, transport, these are things that keeps me away. We need to deliver a lot of infrastructure so that the economy will grow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant.